to AboutFACE Theatre presents 5 Questions With, and today's guest, playwright Deirdre Kinahan. Deirdre is an award-winning playwright whose plays include Embargo, Rathmines Road, Halcyon Days, Crossings, and Spinning. Her work has been produced at theatres including the Old Vic, the Bush, and the Royal Court, while she works regularly with the Abbey Theatre, where her recent adaptation, The Unmanageable Sisters, returned to the stage twice, triumphantly. Her new work for 2021 includes The Saviour for Landmark Productions, In the Middle of the Fields for Solas Nua in Washington, D.C., and The Visit for Dublin Theatre Festival. Deirdre, you're very welcome.
Thank you, delighted.
So good to have you here.
Yeah, great.
We'll just jump in. So the first question is just what play or experience first got you into theatre?
It's a nice question, and I remember it well. It was my mother brought me to see a play called Talca Row in the Beavers pub in Ballantyre when I was about 8. And it was done by a local amateur drama group. It was a play written by Maura Laverty, and then I think it became a soap opera. But I was a kid, and I remember we were sitting like kind of 2 rows from the front, and I was just blown away. I was just blown away by the whole experience. And then I think we went into the bar afterwards, and I was having an orange juice or whatever, and you actually got to chat to the actors, and that was it. Just never looked back. Tormented her into getting me into drama. And she enrolled me then when I was about 10 into Betty Ann Norton School of Speech and Drama in Harcourt Street. I used to get the bus in on my own, like in the dark in the winter, age 10 and 11, because there was nobody to bring you, And my mother loved the theatre. So she was just delighted to have a little partner, and it was quite extraordinary, really, because we didn't come from a theatre background. But what had happened was my mum's lived in Terranure, and there was a woman called Eiley Fitz who was blind from Tipperary, where my granny was from. And she used to come up and down to Dublin for, I don't know, to get Braille books, or was it to go to the Eye and Ear or whatever. But she used to stay in my granny's house. And the one thing she loved doing was going to the theatre, because she was, but obviously the audio, and she loved plays, but she had to be accompanied into town on the bus. So she used to bring my mother. And that's when my mother got into going to see plays. So it was a huge part of my mother's life. And she used to go to everything. And my mum and dad, they used to go to the theatre, and they used to go to all the Rosalie Linehan reviews and, all that kind of thing. So it was part of the household thing, but I just got obsessed. And then my mum just brought me to everything in the Abbey, the Gate, the Project. There was that gorgeous little theatre, the Focus. So I we went to everything, and I just decided at about 8, I want to be an actress. I want to work in theatre. It's what I want to do. So I actually started off as an actress, and then started writing. You go, Maura Laverty, Talca Row in a pub in Ballantyre.
I love it.
Well, I'm especially chuffed with that as a Ballantyre boy myself.
There you go. Because we were from Rathfarnham, so just down the road. I don't know. I think they did it for a while. I know we saw a few plays up there, but don't know what happened after that.
Yeah.
They need to bring it back. Great. So starting off with Talca Row as an inspiration, but for you, Deirdre, what's a great play that you love, and why?
That's a question I don't like. because there's just so many of them, I was thinking about it earlier on, and I think it's kind of characters that follow me around the place. But if I really had to pick one, again, I remember seeing a Druid production of Conversations on a Homecoming by Tom Murphy in the Abbey. God, it was probably early 80s, and I was very young. And I remember there's a point in it where the character played by Sean McGinley turns around to his girlfriend, Peggy, and he tells her, I don't know, to go home on her fat little legs. It's a line, something like that. And I was about 12 or 13, and I jumped up and said, "Shut up, you!" Like in the middle of the Abbey, and my mother was going through. I was just that I was in that pub. I was in that room, you know, and I was devastated for her, you know. Marie Mullen, who I'm about to work with in The Saviour, was playing Peggy. So I just think Conversations on Homecoming, it's just one of those plays that appeal to me, where, you know, there are small plays speaking to big issues, you know, small town characters, locked and lost in their lives. And it's so vivacious and so funny, and it's always moving, and you just fall in love with all of the characters. But it speaks to a stagnation in Irish society at the time, and it speaks to so much about society and the world. And they're the kind of plays I adore, you know. And like another Irish one I absolutely adore is On Raftery's Hill, really difficult play by Marina Carr, but what an extraordinary piece of writing. You know, the characters are incredible, speaks to a brutal truth, you know, and again, it's in one household on one hill in some innocuous place in the Midlands, but it speaks to a huge social reality, you know what I mean, that affects everybody around the world. So it's kind of plays like that. And I was thinking like contemporary plays that aren't Irish. I don't know if you know a play called Top Dog Underdog by Susan Laurie Park. It's one of my favorite plays, you know. Two brothers, you know, just living in this kind of world of denial, you know, where they pretend that, you know, life is good, and they come from a really dysfunctional background, and they're working really hard to get out of where they are. But again, they're kind of locked down into because of a social milieu, because of past, because of history. So I love those kind of plays that sit in one place but reverberate and speak to a kind of a volcanic experience, not only of the characters within the play, but the kind of experiences we can all, you know, kind of connect with. You know, any of those, you know, Glengarry Glen Ross, you know, this, and I love Chimerica is one of my favorite contemporary plays by Lucy Kirkwood, and because again, it's a really famous image of the man standing in front of a tank. You know, what an extraordinary image, what an extraordinary moment in world history. And she just moves back from there into the history of the man and his experience and what brought him to that point. So they're the kind of plays that I love, and it's so hard to pick one. But you know, I suppose plays land on you, do you know what I mean, at different points in your life, and really turn you and just make you the person you are.
Yeah, absolutely. So can you tell us about a time in your theatrical life where something turned out differently than you expected?
Yes, all the time. Would be my answer to that. You know, it's a very dynamic life, you know, and it is constantly spinning and changing. And I think to survive in the arts and to survive in theatre, you've got to be able to turn on a tuppence, you know? I mean, the kind of experience we've all had in the last 2 years, you know, or in the last 18 months with COVID, you know, a play like Embargo, you're in rehearsal, it's designed for a theatre, it's site specific, it's supposed to be happening in Connolly Station and in the Pump House, and then literally 10 days before it's supposed to open, you find out that can't happen. So then you've got people whirling around and trying to figure out a way of presenting it online. But when something is conceived for a theatre space, particularly a fucking railway station, do you know what I mean? And the whole play was written to those two sites, do you know? It was just an incredible experience and incredible work done by Maisie Lee and Jim Culleton and Eva and Dublin Port. And like without Dublin Port and Irish Rail, we could never have filmed it because, you know, you had another 20 grand to your budget, you know, to try and get 5 cameras in. And then suddenly you're re-rehearsing it and redirecting it for screen, you know? So that's the kind of experience we've all had in the last 12 to 18 months. But I could name eons of those, you know, where, you know, you think that something is going to play out in a certain way or tour in a certain way, or you think you're going to make your break with a particular theatre and then it doesn't happen. Like, you know, I was kind of doing a lot of work with Manhattan Theatre Club. You know, they were reading a lot of my plays. They kept bringing me over. They commissioned me to write a play. You felt like this is just going to break. You know, I'm just about to break into Broadway. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then, you know, one decision, one phone call, it's not happening. Then you pick yourself up. And I remember I got a phone call from Graham McLaren in the Abbey. This is about 4 years ago or whatever. And I was, you know, I just had the MTC news, something big was supposed to happen and then it wasn't happening. And he said, could you come in and meet me for a chat? And I said, okay, grand. And all my experience with the Abbey up to that point had been as a member of the board, has been somebody who was very much kind of plugged into the political ecology of theatre in Ireland. So my conversations had always been around policy. I was helping them create a gender policy and all that kind of thing. So I went in expecting that this was a conversation around, you know, the gender policy, or I was no longer on the board, but, you know, something to do with that kind of, you know, background administrative world. And I'm sitting there and he's going, I'd love you to have a read of a play called Les Belles Sœurs by Michel Tremblay. And I was going, oh yeah, right, you know. And he said, because I want to do a version of it. And I was going, oh, right, yeah, very interesting. And he said, and I want you to write the version. And I was going, oh, you know. So it was like this skateboard came in out of nowhere. Do you know what I mean? Kind of under my feet. And then you're kind of going, oh, right, okay. And then it had to be done quite quickly because obviously the program was being put together. And I had a whole heap of other projects going at the time. But because this had to be done quickly, it was kind of grand because I could go, oh, okay, I can take 4 weeks out. I've got a show in the Old Vic that's due for June, supposed to have a draft in December, but I can push that out to January. I've got another show that I can push here. And then bang, you know, I was writing, you know, that version, and it was like a gift in the dark. It came out of nowhere. It was going into rehearsal, you know, 8 weeks later, and 15 women on a stage. I mean, what an opportunity, you know? So it's just, I just think that's very much the life, and you've got to be ready for it, you know. And I think because I've worked a lot in the States and I've worked a lot in the UK, things happen at a pace there, you know, a pace that was not reflected in the Ireland that I, you know, kind of grew up in terms of theatre productions, you know. So, you know, I did a show in the Bush in 2010. Moment was my big breakout play there. And like I think I wrote 3 plays for the Bush in a year, you know, short plays, new opening plays, you know. And then the lady Josie Rourke, who was running it at the time, moved on to the Donmar, and you know, new people came in, had a meeting with the new people who came in, just knew, oh my God, we're just not, that, you know, my work ain't gonna fit them, their aesthetic ain't gonna fit me. So that was it. Didn't work in the Bush after that. It's just, that's the nature of it. That is just the nature of it. But that's what makes it thrilling. You're always on your tippy toes, you know, you're always, you know, you're always looking to the next gig. You know, that's what I find. So nothing turns out the way you expect it to. Simple as, you know. You know.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, okay, so Deirdre, so you're talking about, you know, you've been working in the theatre for many years. You've worked at great theatres in the States, in the UK, lots of stuff here in Ireland. So what is it that keeps you coming back to the theatre? What moves you? What excites you about theatre?
You know, I'm just a play girl, you know. I'm an audience member first and foremost. And I remember back 20 years ago when I set up my own theatre company and started work, and I said, the day I stop enjoying this is the day, you know, the day I stop enjoying going to the theatre is the day I stop working in it, because I just love plays. I love the live element. I love being in that room. I love feeling it in my corpuscles. I just am always intrigued, challenged, amazed, excited. Even if I'm bored out of my fucking mind, you know what I mean? There's always something there that, you know, I'm happily irritated. Do you know what I mean? Theatre just does it for me, you know. I think from that moment as a child, you know, it just breaks down all barriers, and it brings you into worlds and moments and experiences and emotions, you know, that you might not ever experience, and it just plays me like a fiddle. Like, I am your favorite audience. I laugh out loud, I gasp, I cry, I even cry at my own play. You know, it plays me, it speaks to every part of me. And I love that I'm so often surprised by it. And like, I spend my time when I'm working around the world, I spend my time in theaters hunting out what's the new writing house here, you know, what's the new writing house there, what kind of work are they putting on, you know what I mean? I'm in every flea pit and dive and opera house and whatever, you know, and I'm just brought on journeys and brought into histories and brought into experiences that are not mine. And it's taught me how to be a human being, and it's taught me how we all survive and thrive and interact and live our lives, you know. And like, there's just something about the power of performance and, you know, in that space. And I love cinema too, but it's different because it's live. You feel it together. You know, the whole audience, you know, becomes one. It's just magic.
Yeah, I totally agree. And so you've kind of already answered this question, because I was going to ask, you know, what tools from theater like have you found useful in the rest of your life? And you just mentioned that, like, it's taught you how to live. It's taught you how to interact with people. But I mean, is there any tool you can think of to narrow down any one tool that you do think that you really see outside your theater life that you have used that was really nurtured in your theater life?
Just absolutely 100% the kind of amateur psychologist in you. I think theater teaches you why people behave the way they do. So you get the front experience of how they're interacting, you know, be it, you know, making themselves indispensable, frantically looking after everyone or whatever. And you see the person behaving in a particular way. And then slowly but surely that mask is lifted, and you see all the experiences and truths behind that make a person behave in that way. Do you know? And like, what I love about theatre and the kind of theatre I've grown up with and I've seen is that it's a theatre often of losers, you know. It's not usually, you know, the CEO of Aon or whatever, you know. It's some poor soul living in, you know, like, I always think of American Buffalo. Do you know what I mean? Like, 3 lost souls getting involved in a heist that is so beyond them for all doing all the wrong things for all the right reasons, you know. And that's what theatre literally puts you in their shoes, in their, you know, knickers and jackets, and you become them for that couple of hours. So it's really taught me how people are and why they are the way they are. And everything I write comes from that curiosity, trying to understand, you know, how do we get to a point where a man will kill his own family rather than accept that his life is spun out of control. So that's where I start and then move back. It's all about creating understanding. And if you understand, then you empathize and then you can embrace challenge or change. So it's how I've lived my life. I mean, literally theatre, literature and film have created the person I am, and my political ethos and everything. And my kids, I'm really proud to say, because they've been dragged to everything. They like it or not, you know.
Well, this has been terrific, Deirdre. Thank you so much. Just as a bonus question, can you tell us anything about what you're working on at the moment?
Yeah, I've got loads spinning, and because, you know, for the last 18 months we've been in this kind of space of permanent hiatus. It's like a drain has come unplugged, you know, and I've a suite of productions, you know, kind of coming on stream right now, and ones that I'm writing kind of for next year and beyond, that suddenly there's a momentum behind them and phones are ringing and emails are coming in again. So, I mean, I have a play in the middle of the fields that you mentioned at the top, that I wrote. I actually just wrote it as a short piece as part of this evening of kind of music and literature that was being, I was curating for Meath County Council Arts Office, and it was a play about, I had cancer 2 years ago, breast cancer, and this was a piece that I wrote kind of coming out of that experience. And it was about a woman who was reassessing her life after a similar experience. Put a lot of me in there. Obviously, it's a different story. It's not my story. And it was the first thing that I wrote coming out of cancer, which was pretty scary, because I was thinking, like, bloody hell, you know, is that creative part of me still there? Will I be able to write again? Is my head working again? Because like during chemotherapy and that, my head was dead. I did it as a reading and performed it in January last year before lockdown as part of this fabulous event with brilliant musicians and everything. And then Solas Nua happened to see it online and asked me to develop it into a play. So that was really, really, really nice. And hopefully there's going to be an Irish version of it done as well. So that's part of how unexpected everything is. I never would have expected to turn that into a play. And then The Saviour with Landmark, that's a biggie. That's a play that I had written before the cancer, and it got delayed by the cancer, and then it got delayed by COVID. And then Anne Clark, Herculean gymnast that she is.
I know.
Got that going. So and that's a very, very funny, dark portrait of a woman who has suffered deep trauma, but has found a new joy in her life. That's all I'll say about it. But to me, it speaks very much to this kind of queer reality, political reality we have, where suddenly the Catholics are the victims, and you can't be anti-abortion now, or people are jumping down your throat, and you're kind of going, God, you've kind of kept us, you know, in a stranglehold of a Catholic caliphate for 100 years, you know. So it's a play about that change and that shift. And I'm writing a new play called Sisters for Meath County Council Arts Office in Fishamble, and it's a Civil War play. So I'm really, really pleased about that. It's about the experience of the Civil War, because I've written Wild Sky, which was my play for 1916, Embargo, which was a play about the War of Independence, and now this is the third. So I actually just finished the first draft of that recently. And I have another new play with Landmark called Grace, which again is a play that comes from our past. It's a beautiful one-man show. So I'm still writing that. And then I'm still writing The Visit, that's on in the Dublin Theatre Festival in the autumn. And that came from a short play that I wrote for Home Theatre in 2018. So that was a fabulous project where like 30 playwrights wrote small plays that were placed in people's living rooms. So I wrote one for brilliant actress Mary O'Driscoll, who had been one of the Unmanageable Sisters, and we're doing the full length of that in the autumn. And I have an opera that I'm co-writing with Conor Mitchell that we're doing with Belfast Ensemble. And I have a musical that is in development with a theatre in New York. So I like,
Wow.
I know it's kind of bonkers, you know, but it's kind of brilliant as well. You know, I just love it. You know, theatre, it's all about the people I get to work with, and I get to work with some of the most amazing artists here and abroad. So it's it's a real privilege.
Brilliant. Deirdre, thank you so much for joining us today. Such a joy to speak with you.
Yeah, you too. You too.
Yeah.
No bother. Best of luck.
Thank you. And a huge thank you to you, our audience, as well, for joining us. If you enjoyed this interview, please like and share, because we believe theatre makes life better. And so we look forward to seeing you next time on AboutFACE Theatre presents 5 Questions With. Until then.
If you've enjoyed this video, please subscribe to us on YouTube, like us on Facebook, and share. Thanks for watching.